it is I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It's time to continue our discussion on D20 Modern, the modern take on 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. When we last left off, we'd been discussing and diving into FX abilities, and particular Psionics. I'd hit on the initial basis of Psionics, and today we're actually going to finish up talking about the rest of Psionics. Now I'm going to be starting right where we kind of left off while talking about some more FX abilities, in particular the psionic abilities we're discussing. But I'm going to note here this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode because I'm going to try to split up some of the things here. So we're just going to talk about psionic powers the rest of the way. We kind of had left off talking about the descriptions, and let's continue there with power resistance. So power resistance is something that a creature or a character might have that when they're faced with a psionic power, they might not be affected by it. Effectively, when you face a creature with it, or a character with a power resistance, the person that's using the power on them makes a level check. They roll a d20 and they add their psionic character class level, and if this number is equal or greater than the power resistance of the thing you're trying to affect, it gets affected by it. Pretty simple. Similar to spell resistance for magic. Now it is important to know that each power, similar to, again, spell resistance and spells, lists whether or not that power has power resistance and if it applies. Now also, every power will have a PowerPoint cost. How many PowerPoints it's going to cost to manifest that power and use the abilities and things provided in that power's description. Now, all powers of a certain level have that same cost. That's an important note to it. So it makes it easy for you to understand that if I'm using a power at this level, it's the same level, it's going to be the same cost. Of course, every power has a descriptive text to describing how it works. Let's talk a little bit more about powers in general, because we should talk about powers failing. If you try to manifest a power in conditions where the characteristics of the power don't work, then you can't really use that power. If its range, its area, its targets don't exist, and you try to manifest it, then it's going to fail, and the power is wasted. You're effectively trying to manifest something that doesn't work. Also, if a power has concentration, and your concentration is broken, the power also fails. Now, before we move on to feats and powers that are related to psionics, we do have to talk a little bit about combining FX abilities, spells, psionic powers, and magical effects, because you could have all three of them operating at once, if your game master has all three in their campaign. If your game master only has one, you don't have to worry about it, but using multiple psionic powers, or multiple spells, or multiple magical effects may occur, and we have to talk about how those would also combine. So it doesn't matter if they're the same, if they're different, if they're all in the area, they can combine and have effects apply to each other in certain different ways. So let's go over the basic rules of this. Effects that stack. Well, when we talk about stacking effects, we talk about things that give bonuses normally. If something gives a bonus, if it's the same exact type of bonus, they do not stack. For example, if I have a spell which gives a morale bonus and a power which gives a morale bonus, or two different spells that give morale bonuses, they don't stack. They don't add up to a +2. You only count one of them. It's the same way that a power, a spell, or a magic item that gives you a bonus cannot give you that bonus twice. You cannot benefit from it twice. A good example would be the Bless spell. If I have it cast on me twice, the effects don't stack. It doesn't matter if the same spell, it doesn't stack. It's the same way that, okay, different ones that give bonuses that are equal, those equal bonuses don't stack. In this case, if the bonuses that they're applying are completely different, or they aren't specifically typed, they don't have a type mentioned with them, they still don't stack if they're the same thing. They can be simultaneously on you, so that if they have different durations, one may end and the other can keep going, but that's really the only effect they have. Now, that's not to say that bonuses or penalties from two different spells or powers can stack. Effectively, if they're providing different bonuses, one might provide a resistance bonus, the other provides a morale bonus, then those would stack with each other if their types or spells are completely different. If they mention a type, then yes, these two types as they're mentioned would, if they're different types, would stack. Or if they're two different spells that provide an untyped bonus, then yes, those bonuses would also stack, as long as they're different spells and different types. And again, bonuses that aren't named just stack as long as different spells. Now, similar to the Bless, if you have one or more power of identical name or identical ability that are in the same area, then you can also look to different strengths. Some spells, some powers have different strengths as you can be cast in different ways, be more powerful. The one with the highest ability is the one that applies, the highest bonus. For as long as its duration is, then if its duration ends, then the lower ones, if they're still there, will have their effect. But basically, best bonus applies. So if I've got a morale bonus of +2 and a morale bonus of +1, the +2 is the one I'm going to be using until it fades. And if there's still a +1 around, that's what I got then. Mental control is another one that we have to talk about, because there are mental abilities that you can have from spells and psionics that can have different effects on people. There's some like Hold Person, which just holds you still. That one kind of negates a lot of other mental control, because this one particularly robs you of the ability to move. So even if I use another mental ability that might grant you the ability to control your movement, if you can't move, you can't move. On the other hand, it's not removing that control. That control is still there. It's not interfering with it. It's just you can't move. Now, if there's similar mental abilities from two different sources, whether spell or psionic, that are affecting one character, basically entering into one's mind, both could technically control them. As long as both orders are not conflicting with each other, the person that's mentally controlled by two different people will act to the best ability for both of those orders. If some kind of conflict does occur, then the two conflicting controllers will make a opposed charisma check to determine which order gets obeyed. Basically, they roll off to see, like, in the conflict, which one takes priority. But it's effectively that mental control does not remove mental control. That's the easy way of saying it. They're just both there. Now, if a spell or power would have opposite effects, this is another important one. They would apply normally with all bonus penalties or changes accruing in the order that they apply. So if I have something that gives me a morale bonus and something that gives me a morale penalty, guess what? Both are going to apply, unlike with their double bonuses. Now, instantaneous effects, well, if something just has two different effects that could be the same, have two different instantaneous durations, they kind of work cumulative on their effect that they're having. A good example here would be two fireballs striking the same place. Guess what? They're the same spell, but both fireballs are going off. If they're happening at the same time, yeah, they're both affecting you at the same time. You'd take damage from both, you'd make saving throws against both of them, one at a time. The same could be said of two cures. If two people are curing you from different directions, they're both going to work simultaneously. One would apply, and then the other would apply. This stuff, it comes down to there's an order to them. Does the order matter in this effect? No, it really doesn't. You apply one and then the other. Which one comes first, because they're both damaging you or both healing you, it's completely up to the GM. It really has no difference. Now, there is a new feat we do have to talk about that's applied here for psionics in particular, going back to psionics, and that's the Wild Talent feat. Wild Talent basically gives you a psionic power you can manifest 3 times per day that doesn't cost you any power points. Level 0 psionic power. The point of this one is it's a great way for your game master to introduce psionics into the game. The telepath and battle mind require you to have the Wild Talent feat in order to enter into one of those classes. So it's a great way of implying that there are psionic characters out there very easily. Now let's talk about the list of powers, because there is some things we have to break down here for understanding the powers listed in the book. I'm not going to go over any of these powers. There's some information that you should keep in mind for your telepath and battle mind powers. Power chains. Power chains exist. Basically, this is a primary power exists, and then powers that are derived from it also exist. And those powers that are derived from that primary one mention the initial one, rather than putting all the information in. So a good example here would be Mind Link and Forced Mind Link. These are two powers that are chained together. Mind Link being the original one, Forced Mind Link being the one after that. Mind Link will have all the information. Forced Mind Link would reference that you should look to Mind Link for some of that information. Now, this could be information from the header, which means that all that information we were talking about of details that are listed, of things like power resistances, saves, duration, manifestations, range, those might all be listed under Mind Link, and Force Mind Link will not list them. It will list any differences in the header for that power. The description, it might say, as lesser mind link, or as mind link, and then list the differences under there. Now, hit dice is a term that might come up. Hit dice and character levels are kind of used synonymously. Your character levels are equivalent to your hit dice. You get a hit dice for each character level, and so therefore they are equal. If we're talking about creatures, then it's a little different. Now, if a creature has no actual class levels and only has hit dice, then its character level is equal to its hit dice. So if my monster has 5 hit dice, no class levels, its character level will be 5. A creature with class levels and its hit dice is considered to have a total hit dice equal to the hit dice it has and its class level. Basically, its hit dice, its character level, is equivalent to those combined. So if it has 5 and 3 levels of a class, it would have 8 hit dice total, 8 class levels. Manifester level is basically the strength of a power is manifest. If it mentions that it's whatever your psionic class is, whatever level you have in that character class is your manifester level. Creatures that don't have manifester levels, basically don't have levels in battle mind or telepath that have psionic powers, will have their hit dice be used in place of their class levels unless specified. So if I have 5 hit dice as the example again, and I manifest a power, my manifester level will be 5, unless noted. Creatures and characters are words that are often used in descriptions, and they're effectively interchangeable. They're synonymously the same thing, if they find them. When we break down the powers, there are 2 formats that they're listed under. First is the list format, which is a quick reference guide that you're going to be looking at. These are split between telepath powers and battle mind powers. There might be some stacking in between the 2 of them if there's powers that are both telepath and battle mind powers, but if you are one of these classes, these are the quick guides to it. They're separated by the level of the power, and then they're separated alphabetically under those. So if I'm looking under telepath, I could look to my level 0 telepath powers, see them all listed alphabetically, know what they are, move down the levels that way, switch over to the battle mind. After you go through this short list, which gives brief descriptions, which those brief descriptions only give you an idea of how these powers work. They don't give a lot of information. They give ability scores that they're linked to, and of course, the level of them, but that's about it. Then they go into the full power descriptions, which are alphabetical, which goes through all the different powers you can access. You'd be able to find all that different information, the display, manifest time, range, target, duration, all that kind of thing, saving throws, PowerPoint costs. Then it puts them all together. And that's all those powers alphabetical, regardless of their telepath or battle mind. You can just reference them. And that's it for today. So we finished up our discussion on psionics. I went over the rest of the information you have to know about the various powers, and of course how to understand their entries, and little hints on things that might be confusing, like character levels, hit dice, and all that stuff. I also talked about how FX powers can combine along with each other, because this is an important note to know about, is that powers can stack and mix in mysterious ways, and really it'll be down to the game master to determine how 2 spells, 2 powers, 2 magical effects stack with each other and interact. It'll be down to that decision, but if it's very easy to determine how it is using the basic rules in the book, great! It's easy! It just might not be. You never know until you're actually using these 2 things together, and then you have to kind of craft and understand it. And when it comes to powers and how they differ, but are still kind of the same as spells, it's really good to dive in the nitty-gritty of it and understand it a little bit more, because you could use either system separately or you could use them together. It depends on the nature of the world you're building as a game master and how much fun your players would have to it. But we're going to still talk about some FX abilities in the next one with FX items. Effectively, these are your magic and psionic items you'd use in 3rd edition or other various actual D&D editions made for D20 Modern. But I hope you're having a great day. Remember, of course, if you want to show some extra support, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Great ways to show some support for this video and the channel. If you also want to show some extra support, you could check out the links below. There's my Discord, where you can have conversations with me, check out what's going on. That's the best place for updates. You can also check out my Twitter, where I live stream a lot of tabletop-related content and other things like D&D games, Records of Evil, which uses some D20 Modern rules adapted to 5th edition. And of course, you could always check out my Patreon below. That's a great way to show extra support, put some funding towards me to put out more edited videos. I'm only one man, and getting some extra money, maybe hiring an editor for some more videos, would be a great way for me to get out some more content out there that I would always like to do. There's definitely some videos out there which would be a lot harder for me to do on my own nowadays that an editor would be great for. But there's plenty of ways to show support. Anyway, I hope the rest of your day is great. I hope the rest of your week is great. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.